You've seen it 1,000 times, right? A huge airliner touches down, you get that puff of tire smoke, and then this powerful roaring stop. It looks pretty wild. And it makes you wonder, how in the world do you actually stop a machine that heavy moving that fast?
So let's get right into it. Why can't they just use a supersized version of the anti-lock brakes you've got in your car? And while we're at it, why on earth don't they just spin the wheels up to speed before they land? To avoid all that smoke and screeching. On the surface, it seems so obvious, but the real engineering behind it is way more interesting.
All right, first up, let's tackle that big assumption about the brakes. You'd be forgiven for thinking that airplanes are just, missing this basic piece of tech that every single car has. But that's not really the whole story. The truth is, of course, they have a system to keep the wheels from skidding. But the problem it's designed to solve is a completely different beast from your car hitting a patch of wet road. This is all about managing absolutely incredible forces in a very, very specific way.
And this is where it gets really cool. Your car's ABS is like a frantic drummer, just hammering the brakes, bam, 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 so you can keep steering control. An airplane's anti-skid system is more like a surgeon. It's all about finesse, smoothly modulating the pressure to find that absolute perfect sweet spot right around 10 to 20% slip where the tire gets the most possible grip on that runway.
And here's why that finesse is so critical. The very instant those wheels touch down, the wings are still supporting almost all the plane's weight. So if the brakes just grabbed hard, car style, those lightly loaded wheels would lock up in a heartbeat. That's a one-way ticket to a massive skid, or even blowing a tire. The system has to be way smarter than that. It needs to wait for the plane's weight to settle. Okay, so that explains the braking. But what about that dramatic puff of smoke? Well, that brings us to our second big question, the pre-spin problem. And this is a perfect example of an idea that seems like a total no-brainer, right up until you actually do the math. I mean, seriously, why not? Just slap some electric motors on there, or maybe little air turbines, and get those wheels spinning before they touch the pavement. It seems like it would save the tires, make for a smoother landing. People have been patenting ideas like this for decades. So what gives? Why isn't it standard on every plane?
Well, the answer really boils down to these four massive reasons. And honestly, any one of these would probably be a deal breaker on its own. But you put them all together and pre-spinning becomes a complete non-starter. Let's break it down.
First, and this is always a big one in aviation, weight. Every single pound matters. Adding motors, wiring, and extra structural support to the landing gear adds up fast. And over the 20 or 30-year lifespan of a plane, that extra weight means burning millions upon millions of extra dollars in fuel.
Next up is complexity and reliability. I mean, the landing gear is kind of important. It has to work perfectly, every single time, even after being exposed to extreme cold, vibrations, and just immense forces. The moment you add motors and control systems, you introduce a whole bunch of new ways for things to go wrong. Just imagine, what happens if one wheel spins up but the other one doesn't? That is a scenario you do not want to see play out. But the real nail in the coffin, the true aha moment, comes when you just look at the physics of it all. This is where that obvious solution really gets turned on its head. Think about that touchdown again. All that smoke and noise, it looks so dramatic, like a huge amount of energy is being violently dealt with right there. But how much energy are we really talking about? Is it actually as big of a deal as it looks? The answer is almost nothing. It's a tiny fraction. The energy it takes to get those wheels spinning from 0 to landing speed is less than 1% of the total kinetic energy the plane has to get rid of to stop. Let's put some numbers to that because it's pretty staggering. For a Boeing 737, spinning up the wheels takes about 1.2 megajoules of energy. Okay, but stopping the entire plane from landing speed, that takes around 147 megajoules. So we would be adding all that weight, all that complexity and risk to solve a problem that is literally less than 1% of the total energy equation. From an engineering perspective, it's just not worth it.
So if the wheel spin-up is basically a rounding error, what's doing all the real work? Well, this is where it all comes together in this beautiful coordinated sequence. It really is like an engineering ballet.
It happens in a flash, in 3 nearly simultaneous steps. First, bam, spoilers pop up on the wings. They instantly kill the lift and slam the plane's full weight down onto the tires. Then you hear the roar of the engines going into reverse thrust. And it's only then, once the plane is firmly planted on the runway, that the powerful wheel brakes, managed by that smart anti-skid system, really start to bite down hard.
What's fascinating is how the responsibility for braking actually shifts as the plane slows down. Right at touchdown, when speeds are highest, reverse thrust is a huge help, providing maybe 30 to 40% of the stopping power. But as the plane slows, reverse thrust becomes much less effective, and that's when the wheel brakes take over completely, doing more than 90% of the work by the end of the rollout.
And this is the key thing to remember about those spoilers. Their main job isn't actually to act as an air brake. That effect is pretty small. Their most critical function is to spoil the lift, to force the plane to stop flying and start acting like a ground vehicle so that the real powerhouse, the brakes, can do their job. So, to wrap it all up, airplanes use a highly sophisticated anti-skid system, not just a beefed-up car ABS. That obvious idea of pre-spinning the wheels is an engineering dead end. It solves a tiny problem at a huge cost. And finally, stopping is a true team effort. Spoilers enable the whole process, reverse thrust gives a big assist at high speed, and the wheel brakes do the vast majority of the heavy lifting. So when you step back and look at all this, what's the bigger picture? What does the way engineers chose to solve this very specific, very high-stakes problem really teach us? Ultimately, it's a powerful lesson in engineering focus. Great design isn't about eliminating every little puff of smoke or every screech. It's about identifying the truly critical challenges, in this case weight, absolute reliability, and dissipating a massive amount of energy, and then solving those problems in the simplest, most effective way possible. It's about solving the real problem, not just the one that looks the most dramatic.